My boyfriend's mom walked into my home uninvited, cranked my thermostat to 98, ripped off my note and called me a cruel person, so I threw her out and now he wants me to apologize. She was already inside when I got home. Not knocking. Not waiting on the step. Inside. In my apartment, in my kitchen, opening my refrigerator with the specific ease of someone who has decided that the distinction between her space and someone else's space is a formality that does not apply to her. I stood in my own doorway with my key still in my hand and I watched her close my refrigerator, turn around, and look at me with an expression that was not surprise or apology or any version of acknowledgement that she had done something that required either. It was the expression of someone who had been waiting and was mildly irritated by the wait. "You keep almost nothing in there," she said. "My name is Zara. I am 28 years old. I have lived alone in this apartment for 3 years. I have never given anyone a key except the building manager and my boyfriend Dami, who has had one for 4 months and who I had specifically, clearly, in direct words asked to discuss any visits from his family before they happened because I work from home 3 days a week and my space is also my office and the management of my space is not a preference, it is a professional requirement." Dami's mother's name is Felicia. She is 54 and she operates in the world with the specific confidence of a woman who has never been told that her confidence has edges that other people live beyond. She loves her son with the intensity of someone for whom motherhood is the primary organizing fact of existence, which is a beautiful thing in the right proportions and had become, over the 4 months Dami and I had been serious, a thing I was carefully, quietly navigating. I had met her 3 times. The first meeting had been fine. The second meeting she had rearranged the items on my kitchen counter while I was in the bathroom, not dramatically, just moved things to positions she apparently preferred, and when I came back and noticed she had said simply that she found it easier to work this way. I had moved them back without comment. The third meeting she had offered, unprompted and twice, to help me organize my wardrobe because she had a system that worked very well. I had declined both times. The fourth meeting was the one I came home to. I stood in my doorway and I processed what I was looking at and I made a decision, very quickly, about what the next few minutes required from me. "How did you get in?" I said. Dami gave me his key. I told him I wanted to drop something off. She gestured toward a dish covered in foil on my counter. "I made food." He said, "You work too hard and do not eat enough." Everything about that sentence required examination, and I did not have time to examine all of it, so I went to the center of it. "He gave you his key without telling me." "He is my son. This is my apartment." She looked at me the way adults sometimes look at younger people who have said something technically accurate but are being interpreted as missing a larger point. "I am not a stranger. I am his mother. I came to bring food." I stepped fully inside. I put my bag down. I closed the door. I needed 30 seconds and I took them, moving to the kitchen and filling a glass of water and drinking half of it, not because I was thirsty but because the 30 seconds were necessary. When I turned around, she had sat down at my kitchen table. In my chair. The one that faces the window. The one I sit in when I work on days I do not use my desk. She had sat in it with the settled quality of someone who had not considered that there might be a specific reason a chair faces a specific direction. "I will not stay long," she said. "I just wanted to see the place properly. Dami talks about it." "I appreciate the food," I said. Because I had been raised to acknowledge things that deserve acknowledgement, and the food deserved it regardless of everything attached to it. "I do need to ask you to call before you come next time." She tilted her head. A small movement. The movement of someone who has heard a thing and is deciding how much weight to give it. I am not someone who needs an appointment with my son's girlfriend. I looked at her. This is not Dami's apartment. It is mine. Anyone who enters it, including Dami, extends me the courtesy of communication before arriving. That is not about you specifically. It is how I manage my home. She looked back at me. Something shifted in her expression, but I could not fully read the shift, and I did not have time to because my eye caught the thermostat on the wall behind her, and what I saw on it stopped the conversation in my head entirely. 98 degrees. I walked past her to the thermostat. I looked at it. 98 degrees, set and running, the unit already working to reach a temperature that my apartment had never been set to in the 3 years I had lived there. I turned and looked at her. "Did you change this?" It was very cold in here. Unbothered. Completely unbothered. It was set to 72. "That is too cold. You will make yourself unwell." I reset it to 72. My hands were very steady. I was focusing on keeping them steady. "Please do not adjust things in my apartment. It is a thermostat, not a personal item." "It is in my apartment," I said. "Everything in my apartment is something I manage." She made a sound. Not quite dismissive. Something between dismissal and amusement. The sound of someone who has categorized this conversation as an overreaction they are tolerating. I went to my desk. I wrote a note on a piece of paper and I folded a piece of tape and I attached the note to the thermostat. The note said, "Do not adjust." It was direct and it was clear and it was mine to put there because it was my thermostat in my apartment. I turned around. She was reading the note. She had stood up and crossed to the thermostat and was reading the note with an expression I had not seen on her face in 3 previous meetings. Not offense exactly. Something colder than offense. She reached up and she pulled the note off the thermostat. The tape made a small sound when it separated from the wall. A small, specific sound. She held the note in her hand and she looked at me and she said a word that I am going to tell you directly because softening it would make what happened next less honest. She called me a female dog. In the specific, one-syllable way that is meant to land and does. The room was very quiet for a moment. Then I said, "I need you to leave." "Excuse me." "I need you to leave my apartment. Now. Please take the note you removed from my property and leave." She stared at me. "You are asking me to leave?" "Yes." "You are throwing Dami's mother out of his home." "This is not his home. This is my home. And you have come here without my knowledge, adjusted my thermostat, and called me something I will not be called in my own space. You need to leave." Something moved across her face. A sequence of things. The specific rapid sequence of a person who has been told a hard thing and is deciding, in real time, whether to escalate or to go. She picked up her bag from the chair. She walked past me to the door. At the door she turned. "Dami will hear about this," she said. "I know," I said. "I'm going to tell him myself." She left. The door closed. I stood in my kitchen in the silence of my apartment at 72 degrees and I breathed and I looked at the thermostat and I looked at the dish of food covered in foil on my counter, and I picked up my phone and I called Dami. He answered on the second ring. From the background noise he was still at work. "Your mother is in my apartment," I said. "Or she was. I asked her to leave." A pause. "What happened?" I told him. All of it. The refrigerator. The thermostat. The note. The word. I told it in sequence and without escalation, and I watched my own voice do the thing it does when I am controlling something significant, go very flat and very precise. When I finished there was a silence on the line. "She called you that," he said. "Yes." Another silence. Longer. "I am leaving now," he said. "I will be there in 30 minutes. He arrived in 25. He came through the door with the specific energy of someone who has been thinking in a car and has arrived at a position and is not fully certain of the position. He looked at the thermostat. He looked at the counter where the dish was. He looked at me sitting on the couch with my laptop open because I had gone back to work because my work did not pause for family incidents. He sat down across from me. "I should not have given her the key," he said. "First. Before anything else." "No," I said. "You should not have." I thought she was just dropping food off. She said 5 minutes. She was in my refrigerator when I arrived. He closed his eyes for a moment. "Open them." "I am sorry." "For the key." "That was mine to handle, I did not handle it." "Thank you," I said. ABT. "She is very upset," he said. I looked at him. "I know," he said quickly. "I know how that sounds after what I just said. I am not defending what she did. I'm telling you she called me from the car and she is upset." "She is upset," I said. "Zara." "Dummy." I closed the laptop. I turned fully toward him. "She entered my home without my knowledge. She changed my thermostat to a temperature I would never set it to. She removed a note I had placed on my own property. And then she called me something I will not repeat. She is upset." He looked at his hands. "She said the note was aggressive." "The note said do not adjust." "I know. That is not aggressive. That is an instruction in my own home after someone changed my thermostat to 98 degrees. "I know," he said again. He was quiet for a long moment. "She wants an apology." Something happened in my chest when he said it. Not explosion. Something colder. The very specific cold of a person who has heard something that tells them something they needed to know about where they are. "She wants an apology," I said. "For asking her to leave. She feels." Dummy. Very quiet. "Your mother came into my home without permission, called me a cruel person in my own kitchen, and she wants an apology from me." He did not answer immediately. The not answering immediately was the most honest thing he had done in the 25 minutes since he arrived. "What do you want me to do?" he said. "I want you to answer a question first," I said. Do you think I owe her an apology? He looked at me. In the looking, I watched him have the conversation with himself that people have when the honest answer and the comfortable answer are not the same answer. And what he said next was the thing that made the next 4 days the hardest 4 days we had spent in 8 months together. I think, he said slowly, that an apology might help move things forward. The sentence landed in my living room with the specific weight of something that is technically neutral and is not neutral at all. I looked at him for a long moment. At the face I knew well enough to know when it was managing rather than being honest. At the jaw that went slightly tight when he was holding something and the eyes that moved just left of direct contact when the direct contact would cost him something. Move things forward, I said. She is my mother. I have to live with this relationship for the rest of my life. If an apology from you smooths something that is otherwise going to be very difficult. She called me a cruel person. I know. In my own kitchen. I know, Zara. And you are sitting in my apartment asking me to apologize to her. He exhaled. Long. The exhale of someone who knows they are on the wrong side of something and has not fully decided to move. I am not saying what she did was right. I am saying relationships require compromise, and my mother is someone I cannot simply stop. I stood up. Not in anger. Because sitting still was not something I could do inside what was happening. I need you to hear exactly what you are asking me. You are asking me to apologize for removing someone from my own home after she called me something I will not be called. You are framing that as compromise. I need you to sit with what that means. He sat with it. I could see him sitting with it, the specific quality of a person receiving something they are not ready to receive but cannot honestly reject. What will you have me do? He said. Tell me what you are going to say to her, I said. Not what you want me to do. What you are going to do. He looked at his hands again. The hand looking was a thing he did when the answer was forming and was not ready and he needed the extra seconds. I had learned this about him in 8 months and I waited. I'm going to tell her that giving her my key without your knowledge was wrong, he said. And that entering your space and adjusting your things was wrong. And that what she called you was absolutely unacceptable and that I need her to understand all of those things before anything else is discussed. I looked at him. Are you going to tell her that, or are you going to mean to tell her that and tell her a softer version? He looked up. Something moved across his face that was not comfortable. That is not fair. It is a fair question, I said. I have watched you manage her across 3 months of us being serious. I know what managing her looks like. I'm asking whether this conversation is going to be the managed version or the honest one. He was quiet for a long time. I do not know, he said. Finally. The most honest sentence of the evening. I sat back down. Not because I had softened. Because the honesty of it deserved to be received sitting down. I appreciate that. I love my mother, he said. And she is difficult. And those two things coexist, and I have spent 31 years navigating both of them, and I do not always navigate it perfectly. I know you love her, I said. I am not asking you to love her less. I'm asking you to be honest with her. Clearly. In a way that actually lands. And if she does not respond to the honest version the way you need her to. I looked at him. Then we have a different conversation. About what this looks like going forward. About what I am and am not able to continue with. The sentence sat between us. Not as a threat. As a fact, stated plainly, which is the only way facts of that weight should be stated. He left that night to go home to his own apartment. Not because I asked him to. Because he needed to call his mother and he wanted to do it without me in the room, which I understood and which I appreciated the honesty of. I sat in my apartment at 72 degrees and I looked at the thermostat and I thought about the note in the tape and the small sound the tape made when she pulled it off and the word that followed, and I thought about what I knew about a man based on his first instinct in a crisis, which is not always the accurate picture of him but is always information. His first instinct had been to ask for the apology. He had corrected it. But it had been first. I made tea. I worked for 2 hours. I went to bed. He called the next morning. Early. Before I would normally speak to anyone. I talked to her, he said. How did it go? I said everything I said I would say. A pause. She was angry. She said I was taking your side against my own mother. I told her there were not sides. There was what happened, and what happened was not acceptable. I sat up in bed. You said that. I said that, he said. I also said that the key situation was mine to own and that I was wrong and that I had put her in a position by giving her access without your knowledge, and that was not her fault and was entirely mine. Something in me that had been held tight for 18 hours released by a degree. She cried, he said. I know she would, I said. She said she was trying to do something kind. The food. And that she had not expected the reception she got. The reception she got was me asking her to leave after she called me a cruel person. I told her that. His voice was steady. More steady than the night before. I told her that whatever her intentions were going in, what happened in that apartment was not something she could put on you. That the word she used was not something I was going to move past easily. That she owed you something and that the something needed to be real and not managed. I held the phone and I thought about what it had cost him to say those things to the woman who had raised him and who cried when she was hurt and who loved him with the intensity of someone for whom motherhood was everything. Thank you, I said. I am not finished, he said. She is not there yet. She is hurt and she is going to be hurt for a while and I cannot make that happen faster than it happens. But I told her the truth and I am not going to untell it to make her more comfortable. I need you to know that. I know it, I said. Because I did. The knowing was different from the night before. Felicia called me 4 days later. Not Dami's phone. Mine. My number, which she had apparently gotten from him at some point, used for the first time. I answered because not answering was also a choice with consequences and I preferred to make the choice deliberately. She did not open with an apology. She opened with a silence that lasted long enough to tell me she was composing herself on the other end of it. Then she said she wanted to talk about what happened. I said I was listening. She said she had come with good intentions. She said she understood that good intentions did not make the outcome acceptable. She said the word she used was wrong and that she had used it in a moment of feeling dismissed and that feeling dismissed did not make it acceptable either. She said she was sorry for the word specifically. She said it in the precise way that apologies need to be said when they are real, naming the specific thing rather than the general territory of it. I sat with it, testing it internally for the managed version. For the apology that is designed to close the conversation rather than address it. It did not feel managed. It felt like a woman who had been told hard things by her son and had spent 4 days with the hard things and had arrived at a place that was not fully resolved but was honest. I appreciate that, I said. I accept it. A pause. Dami says you are important to him. He is important to me, I said. Another pause. Longer. I am not easy, she said. The words arriving with the specific quality of something rarely said out loud. I know I am not easy. I have been told this before and I have not always received it well. I am not asking you to be easy, I said. I'm asking you to respect that my home is my home. That is the only thing I need from you. She was quiet for a moment. I can do that, she said. Carefully. Like someone making a commitment they intend to keep and want to be accurate about the terms of. We got off the phone. I sat in my kitchen at my counter, which had been at 72 degrees since I reset the thermostat, and I thought about what had just happened and what it meant and whether I believed it. I believed it enough. Not completely. Not with the confidence that comes from a pattern of behavior rather than a single phone call. But enough to move forward with open eyes rather than closed ones. Dami came over that evening. He did not ask how the call had gone because she had apparently told him she was going to call and he was giving me the space to tell him on my own terms. I told him. All of it. He listened the way he had been listening since the night he arrived in 25 minutes, fully, without interrupting. When I finished he said, "Are you okay?" "Yes," I said. "Are you?" He looked at me. I spent 4 days telling my mother things she did not want to hear. I'm tired. But I am okay. I know it cost you something, I said. It did, he said. Without minimizing it. She is my mother and I love her and telling her she was wrong about something is not something that gets easier just because I am 31. He paused. But I meant it. All of it. And I needed you to see me mean it. I looked at him across my kitchen in my apartment at 72 degrees. I saw it, I said. We are still together. The months since have not been without friction. Felicia and I are not close and we are not going to be close on a short timeline and I have made my peace with that. What we are is respectful. She calls before she comes. She has not touched my thermostat. She brought food again 2 months later and she left it with Dami and sent me a message that said simply, "I hope you enjoy it." I messaged back, "Thank you. It was very good. Not warm. Not cold. Real. Which is where we are and which is, for now, enough." Dami and I had one more conversation about the night. His first instinct was the apology. Not to relitigate it. Because I needed him to understand something and because I believe that the things you need a partner to understand deserve to be said plainly. I told him that the first instinct had mattered to me. That I understood it came from a complicated place. That I had watched him correct it and that the correcting had mattered more than the instinct. But that if we were going to build something serious I needed to know that his first instinct, over time, would move. Not away from his mother. Toward me. Toward us. toward the thing we were building as its own entity that required its own protection. He looked at me for a long time after I said it. I know, he said. I am working on that. I know you are, I said. That is why I am still here. Here is what I want to say to anyone who has stood in their own home and been made to feel like a guest in it by someone who believes that love for another person grants access to everything that person touches. Your home is yours. The thermostat is yours. The note on the thermostat is yours. The key that enters the door is something you control, and that control is not coldness. It is the basic, reasonable maintenance of the space that makes you safe enough to be someone's partner in the first place. You do not owe an apology for protecting your space. Not to the person who entered it without permission. Not to the partner who initially asked you for one. Not to anyone. What you owe is clarity. Said once. Said plainly. In your own voice in your own home at whatever temperature you have set the thermostat to. Felicia called it cold. 72 degrees. I call it exactly right. And I am not adjusting it for anyone.